Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Research Across Canada. Before we begin with our program, I'll go over some housekeeping items to ensure you have the best experience. My name is Sarah. Thank you again for joining us. You may choose a transcription or audio in whatever language you wish. Use the Wordly QR code that was on the screen or click the link that is in the chat box. You do not need to download or sign up for the app to use it. The Wordly app will open and ask you to confirm that you wish to enter the session. Choose the language you want to hear from the bottom of the screen and unmute the app. Bring the volume to a comfortable level for you. Note that there will be a pause as the app will wait for the end of the sentence before delivering the translation. To only hear the translation, click on the microphone icon in the Zoom screen and click on Leave the Computer Audio. If you have any technical questions at any point, please enter it in the chat and we'll do our best to help you fix it. We will have some time for questions and answers at the end of the webinar. Look for the chat button at the bottom of your screen. You can type your question there. You can type questions throughout the webinar, and we'll get to as many as we can by the end of the presentation. MS Canada would like to acknowledge that we gather virtually from coast to coast in the ancestral territory of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Nations that have cared for Canadian land from the shores of the ocean, over the mountains, across the prairies, and through the Great Lakes for thousands of years, and continue to do so today. We thank them for their care and the opportunity to come together at this event. At this time, I'm very pleased to be able to introduce you to Jennifer Conley. Okay, Jennifer, you are live and good to go.
Thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Conley, and I'm the Vice President of Philanthropy at MS Canada. I'm thrilled to officially welcome you to our Research Across Canada webinar. We'll have the opportunity to hear directly from our President and CEO, Dr. Pamela Valentine, on the extraordinary progress we've seen in MS research over the past 4 decades. Today's conversation will be guided by Benjamin Davis, Senior Vice President of Mission at MS Canada. Together, he and Pam will reflect on how MS research has evolved over time, why we're standing at a critical inflection point today, and discuss where to go next. They will also highlight the ways in which MS Canada's long-standing research leadership, supported by donor investments, has helped make today's advancements possible. Without further ado, let's get started. Over to you, Ben.
Thanks, JC, for that great introduction. Pam, you ready?
Absolutely.
All right. So, in the span of 4 decades, MS care has transformed. Reality has shifted for people living with MS, going from having no disease-modifying therapies, or DMTs, to more than 20 therapies now. From the expectation of severe disability within 20 years after an MS diagnosis, to a world where delaying disability and even exploring ways to repair damage, restore function, and prevent the disease altogether is within reach. Ongoing research investments have transformed MS care and understanding, pushing the field into a dramatically better place today than it was 4 decades ago. It's remarkable progress that has moved us away from a narrow focus on inflammation to a holistic model that integrates risk stratification, early detection, lifestyle, physical activity, and comorbidities as core parts of treatment. And I'm thrilled to dive into all of that with you today. Can you walk us through a timeline of the progress made in MS research to date?
Absolutely. And you know, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's what inspires me so deeply about the work that we do at MS Canada and why I am so confident that in the next decade, we're going to see even greater progress. So let's travel back to 1981 when things really began to change. That's when MRI was used for the first time to visualize lesions of the brain of people living with MS. This breakthrough completely revolutionized MS diagnosis, but also prognosis and disease monitoring, and the development of treatments to come over the years that followed. As technology became more sophisticated, the quality and resolution of MRI images drastically improved. And the technique was adapted to view the spinal cord as well, further enhancing the diagnostic and prognostic sensitivity of MRI in MS. It was really this that gave neurologists the tools that provided an opportunity to distinguish between old chronic lesions and active inflammatory lesions. An important distinction in understanding disease activity, in guiding treatments, and monitoring treatment efficacy.
So the 80s brought new ways to visualize MS, but the treatments at that time were still scarce. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Upon diagnosis, people at the time were often told to go home and wait, to rest, to avoid work or family planning, and to avoid exercise. Essentially, to press pause on living. And the only treatment that was available was corticosteroids to lessen the length and severity of relapses when they occurred. The reality was that people living with MS had no option but to wait for disability to accrue. And then the 90s came, bringing with them the therapeutic era of MS. This is when interferon beta 1b was first introduced. Canadian researcher Dr. Ebers was the principal investigator on a pivotal trial which established the world's first approved disease-modifying therapy for relapsing remitting MS. And over the course of the decade, more DMTs were developed, reducing relapse rates and MRI lesion activity and establishing injectable immune modulating therapies as the standard of care. If we fast forward through the 2010s, we see a rapid influx of treatments for MS. In 2004, we moved from injectables to high efficacy agents like natalizumab, the first in a class of agents to reduce inflammation in MS by stopping harmful immune cells from entering the brain and spinal cord. In 2010, figolimod became the first oral disease-modifying therapy for relapsing MS. Other DMTs followed, making MS treatment more convenient and easier to adhere to. By 2016, B cells were recognized as central players, leading to trials of monoclonal antibodies such as rituximab and ocrelizumab, which showed high efficacy in relapsing MS. Today, then, there's over 20 Canadian approved DMTs across injectable, oral, and infusion routes, targeting at roughly 10 different mechanisms of action. So people living with MS now are given options for treatment. They're encouraged to continue working, to plan families, and to engage in lifestyle changes such as exercise, maintaining a balanced diet, and stopping smoking to help manage their disease. The impact of the past 4 decades have had on improving the day-to-day lives of Canadians with MS is truly outstanding.
It truly is, isn't it? Wow. And I think most people in this virtual room know that we have extraordinary MS research capacity in Canada. I'm wondering, could you share some examples of contributions by Canadian MS researchers at different stages in the timeline of progress we just went over?
For sure. And Canadians are all over it. They're woven through the fabric of MS research that is being done and has been done at a global level. So we've talked about the groundbreaking effect of MRI technology has had as a tool to measure MS. There's a host of different research groups across Canada that are focusing on this work. So let me highlight a few. There's the MS MRI research group at the MS Clinic at the University of British Columbia, including Dr. David Lee, Dr. Tony Tobolsky, and Shannon Coland. They have worked on a multi-center clinical trial for MRI protocols that have helped to standardize how lesions, brain volume, and treatment effects are measured in MS studies worldwide. The Montreal Neurological Institute installed Canada's first whole body MRI in 2019. And this gave researchers an unprecedented near microscopic view of the brain and spinal cord. So they're able to look at the entire nervous system. There's also work that's been done by Dr. Jiwan Oh and team at the University of Toronto, who have helped to transform how we use MRI in MS. Their work has given us clearer insight into disease progression, helping us move closer to more personalized treatments. Then we can talk about the life-changing chain of events that set into motion by the 1993 interferon beta 1b work. Dr. Ebers worked on the pivotal interferon beta 1b or beta seron trial, which established the world's first approved DMT for relapsing remitting MS. MS Canada and other organizations have also funded Dr. Amit Bar-Or that helped to establish that B cells as central players in MS rather than supporting actors of the T cells. A Canadian team, including Dr. Bar-Or, Dr. Gomerman, and Dr. Pratt, showed how B cells and the antibodies they produce drive inflammation and damage in MS. This work was revolutionary, directly informing the global push towards B-cell targeted therapies like anti-CD20 antibodies, which are now among the most effective DMTs used worldwide. There's also Dr. Friedman's work at the University of Ottawa, working on homologous hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, a mouthful, I know, or AHSCT, a one-time stem cell treatment to remove disease immune system cells with chemotherapy and to grow a new one from a patient's own stem cells. And for some patients, it can significantly reduce and potentially stop MS disease activity. Dr. Friedman's trial was the first to show complete suppression of inflammatory disease activity in every patient for a prolonged period of time, and in some cases, produced a lasting improvement in disability. The truth is, Ben, and you know this, probably lots of people on this call know this, MS is Canada's disease. We have one of the highest rates of MS in the world, but we also have incredibly strong scientific leadership. Our researchers and neurologists show immense agility, open-mindedness, and determination to answer the most difficult questions that surround MS. And with support of donors like are on the call today, attending this event, we continue to build capacity in Canadian MS research that ripples into progress here at home in Canada, but in fact also around the world.
Well done, Pam. That's an incredible summary. That's great. Thank you so much. Let's talk about the impact of this work on the lives of Canadians living with and affected by MS. You mentioned fewer relapses and reduced disability. Can you walk us through some of the research that demonstrates this progress?
For sure. It's deeply meaningful to witness how strategic investment in research over a long period of time that the organization has continued to invest in has delivered tangible improvements in the everyday lives of people living with MS. The shift is clear when comparing MS experience before and after the treatment era. We know from long-term studies following people with MS that in the past, many reached substantial disability within 15 to 20 years of diagnosis. If you fast forward to today, you'll find a clear deceleration of disability accumulation over time. DMTs are delaying progression by a decade and reducing the number of people scoring high on milestones marked by the Expanded Disability Status Score, or EDSS, within the same time window. But also a population-based study that followed over 35,000 people with MS between the years of 1996 and 2017 found that people exposed to disease-modifying therapies were at lower risk of mortality by 30% compared to those without exposure to DMTs. Those are simply astounding health outcomes that are indicative of the progress that's been made in MS, arguably more than has been observed in the same time period in any other neurological disease. Where disability and shorter life expectancy were once expected, modern therapies have reduced relapses, slowed disability, and improved not only the risk of mortality rates, but the quality of life of those Canadians living with MS. It's really amazing. Uh-oh, Ben's glitched. Or I am, one or the other.
No, I think it's just Ben. Hang on just a second. You know what, JC, do you think you could jump in and take
Ask
over for
question,
Ben?
next
Yeah.
question.
Oh, we really did lose him. Hang on. There's problems in Halifax. There
There's
you are.
problems. Ben's got a problem in Halifax. Okay, well, that's okay. We tuck and roll, Jason.
Absolutely. JC, thanks for jumping in. Do you mind taking over?
Oh, I'd be delighted. Thank you. And
Thank
I'll look
you.
forward to Ben rejoining actually too.
Do you want me to tell you where you are?
I would love you,
I
Dr.
think we're on
Pamela Valentine,
question 4.
to tell me, more about why starting treatment early is important, please. I really want to pick up on why you talked about progression and, the identifiable risk factors.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Sorry, a quick shift. Let me talk about the major shift over the last 10 years that has been moving away from the belief that progression cannot be treated and instead pushing to better understand it. MS Canada is a founding member of the International Progressive MS Alliance, a global community created to address one of the biggest gaps in MS research and care at the time, now 15 years ago, where there was really a lack of effective treatments for progressive forms of MS. It brought global resources and expertise together to accelerate scientific progress and maximize impact. But it also helped to position MS progression as a global research priority. There's also the Canadian Prospective Cohort study to understand progression in MS, or what we affectionately call CanPro-Co, funded in partnership between MS Canada, the pharmaceutical industry, the provincial governments, and other not-for-profit organizations. It's focused to really better understand the factors that can lead to or influence MS progression. It follows almost 1,000 people with radiologically isolated syndrome, early relapsing remitting MS, and primary progressive MS over time, combining detailed clinical tests such as walking speed, hand function, processing speed, blood tests, and MRI to map how progression starts and unfolds. Their work is really already showing that subtle changes in performance tests and MRI can detect progression earlier than traditional EDSS scores, and that progression is present across MS subtypes, not only in people diagnosed with progressive MS. Another advancement is that there are now treatments available for progressive forms of MS. In 2016, clinical trials with ocrelizumab showed a reduction in disability progression in primary progressive MS, which was really a landmark moment for a population previously lacking a proven disease-modifying therapeutic options. Researchers are now studying pathways that involve repair, regeneration, and neuroprotection to develop even more effective therapies for progressive MS.
Thanks very much, Pam, for unpacking that. And, I still have that question, so thank you for that background about starting treatment early as being really critical. I'm wondering if you could chat about that a little bit for us,
For
please.
sure. And it's been a big change in the way that we've been looking at MS more recently. So, when it comes to MS, what we know is that time matters. And early diagnosis opens up a door to timely treatment options, which, as we've discussed, reduce disability progression and decrease mortality. It's really all connected. What we know from genetic and epidemiological studies that key risk factors for MS include more than 200 genetic loci. I think the last number I heard was 233 genetic loci have been associated with the disease. And researchers believe that a combination of genes and lifestyle or environmental factors can influence the risk of developing MS. Many cohort studies have shown that smoking, obesity, vascular comorbidities such as hypertension are associated with faster disability progression and worse MRI outcomes in MS. Lifestyle risk factors such as regular physical activity, structured exercise program have improved walking, fatigue, quality of life, and are now embedded in MS care guidelines as sort of core components of disease management, not extras. Other examples of modifiable risk factors include vitamin D deficiency, smoking, adolescent obesity, and most recently discovered the central role of Epstein-Barr virus infection as a necessary factor in MS. Ed just asked that very question popping up in my screen at the same time. Canadian researchers have really been at the forefront of this work too. MS Canada funded research by Drs. Sadovniak, and Dr. Ebers led to Canadian collaborative project on genetic susceptibility to MS. It was one of the largest family MS genetic efforts in the world, and it compiled family histories and DNA from thousands of Canadians living with MS and their relatives across 15 different MS clinics here in Canada. And it helped to confirm that MS has a strong genetic component that fed into international studies that have identified those more than 200 MS susceptibility variants that I just mentioned. This is a great demonstration of how MS Canada's research investments can yield outstanding results and drive research leadership at a global scale. Further, Dr. Ebers led a landmark population-based Canadian twin studies that showed that MS susceptibility is driven by a complex interaction of genes and environment, not a single deterministic gene. It was his work that established vitamin D deficiency as a risk factor for MS. But for many years, MS Canada has also supported work of Dr. Mark Horowitz on EVB at UBC. His team is working with mouse models with immune systems that mimic those of humans to better understand how the infection may cause or lead to MS. And their work has shown that mice with EBV positive cells developed an MS-like disease earlier and higher in severity than those with EBV negative cells, specifically in terms of more demyelination and inflammation. This demonstrates that an EBV infection can somehow prime the immune system for MS. Their work supports evidence that EBV may play a mechanistic role in developing MS, and that targeting EBV could lead to future preventative strategies for MS.
These are truly monumental discoveries that you're sharing with us. Thank you
Totally.
so much. You know, another topic I've heard you be really passionate about is the MS prodrome and the opportunities that it can bring for intervention and risk factor identification early on. Do I have that right?
You do. That is right.
Okay, good.
You know, the MS prodrome is incredibly important work that has been led by a Canadian researcher, Helen Tremlett at the University of British Columbia, and is work that we fund as well. We now have strong evidence pointing to the fact that disease biology begins much earlier than the first clinical episode. That work showed that many people who end up developing MS use healthcare services more frequently than those who don't go on to develop MS. They experience symptoms such as fatigue, sleep disorders, anemia, pain, and certain psychiatric or pain diagnoses in the 5 years prior to the first demyelinating event and up to 15 years before they receive a diagnosis. Not only does this work redefine the timeline of MS, but it also opens up the door to new opportunity for early intervention. So, by tracking healthcare use and identifying early warning signs that might include anxiety, mood disorders, severe headaches, migraines, extreme fatigue, and many more, is now much more feasible. I get really excited when I think about the opportunities to use tools like AI to recognize patterns in health utilization data to help identify those at risk of MS at an ultra early time point and be able to intervene. That's why we always say that everyone's MS journey is unique and we endorse a holistic treatment outlook. Different things work for different people, and being able to better understand those patterns at a much earlier time point gives us real opportunity. Welcome back, Ben. We are on question 7, in case you don't know.
I am aware.
Okay, good.
On behalf of my internet
Thanks,
provider,
JC.
I apologize. Thank you, JC. We're just demonstrating to our audience how quickly we can move, right?
Duck and roll,
Yeah.
babe.
Okay. So we're on question 7. I'm here. Okay.
Yeah,
Apologies.
excellent.
Okay. So I'm going to guess earlier you said when it comes to MS, time matters. And that's been ringing in my head, certainly ever since I've first heard you talk about that. We've learned a lot over the past few decades, and we might be heading into a future with even more MS discoveries. Would you say we are at an inflection point in MS research right now?
Yeah, most certainly we are at an inflection point right now. You know, and as we've already talked about today, research has transformed our understanding of the biology that drives MS far beyond what we can see on an MRI scan. We now know much more about the immune and brain processes that lie underneath this disease. And thanks to years of research and advancements in treatments, scientists and clinicians are now recognizing MS as a continuous disease process involving complex biological processes that are present in varying degrees from the time that MS starts. And that's not all. Our Canadian clinical and research community continues shaping the field by contributing to leading clinical guidelines. So the recent revisions that have been made to the McDonald diagnostic criteria that are really positioning us for earlier and easier diagnosis with fewer misdiagnoses. New Biomarkers developed will also support the diagnostic journey and the treatment journey. So kappa-free light chain, central vein sign, paramagnetic rim lesions, among others, can be used to predict disease activity, long-term disability worsening, and treatment response in people with MS. Serum neurofilament light chain is a biomarker that predicts long-term clinical outcomes in MS and has now already been approved for clinical use in Canada. The field has also begun to understand the role of aging in MS and specifically how it can accelerate biological aging, making repair and remyelination harder. Defining MS in this way has already led to more precise targets for different disease processes, including a new class of drugs that battle a specific type of inflammation in disability progression. Brutins, tyrosine kinase inhibitors, that's a mouthful, or BTKIs. And Canadian centers are set to become key trial sites and thought leaders in the testing of BTKIs in progressive, non-relapsing disease, not just relapsing MS. What's very exciting now is that MS research has seen tremendous advances in our capacity and potential to repair and restore function too. Recent clinical trials with ocrelizumab have shown that it is also effective in delaying disability progression and in improving upper limb function in older people with primary progressive MS, living with advanced disability. These findings bring hope to people with more advanced MS, where improvements in hand and arm function could equate to more independence and better quality of life. This is one of the first studies to confirm that MS is modifiable throughout the disease course and that the capacity to regain function is possible in advanced primary progressive MS. We've also learned that myelin repair is not only modulated by disease-modifying therapies, but by lifestyle factors like aerobic exercise. This important work has been catalyzed by laboratory findings of Dr. Wei Young, who leads the field in biological mechanisms of remyelination in MS.
Wow, that's a lot. Thanks, Pam. Next question. What's next for MS Canada?
Well, I think one of the things that stands out to me is the pace at which research in MS has been moving. You know, we've gained momentum and we're not going to slow down anytime soon. For the first time, research is opening a door not just to managing MS, but to understanding how acting at the right time, repairing damage, restoring function, and ultimately preventing MS altogether. This new era of MS is supported by incredible collaboration happening across the country in Canada and at international levels. We are leading the way on an MS prevention research initiative, building a global alliance of MS organizations. We're uniting experts from around the world to understand not only how and how early MS develops, but how to stop it from progressing further and before it starts. The time to act is now because time matters to people who are living with MS and to those with aspirations of remaining disability-free, and to those hoping to regain function, and quite honestly, to those not yet, but might someday be diagnosed with MS. Time also matters to families navigating a new reality of MS and to researchers working tirelessly at the edge of discovery. But what we know is that we can't do this alone. The support of our MS community, partners, donors, clinicians, researchers, what I like to call the big CMS community, is key to making any of this happen. Together, we're writing a new chapter in the decades-long scientific MS story building upon those who came before and setting the stage who will come for those who will come after. And it's with the support of our MS community and incredible donors like we have on the call today that we will arrive at a time free of MS.
Wonderful. Thank you, Pam, for
So
that.
exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And thanks for that insightful and inspiring overview. We're now going to move into the Q&A portion of the session. And we have a few questions to begin with, so I'll start. You mentioned some of the research breakthroughs that have been led by Canadian researchers and funded in part by MS Canada. Could you share more about MS Canada's investment strategy? Why do you think it has produced such breakthroughs?
Yeah. Determination, I
Yeah.
think. We're super purposeful in our investments. We engage lived experience in those decisions at every level, from setting priorities to reviewing the proposals with the scientific community hand in hand, to participating in research studies. So I think that's some of why we've gotten some things right. I think we also ears open, listen to what's happening around the world and work with and collaborate across our sister and brother organizations from around the world. But annually, we add $6 to $9 million every year in new research funding. And this money contributes to our current overall research portfolio that today is worth $34 million in funds which support over 100 research grants, personnel awards, and research capacity building activities. But as I said, we really take the global collaboration to heart. We work across organizations from around the world, align our research investments so that we can accelerate progress together. So when someone gives to MS Canada, they can be very assured that they're taking an active role in funding the best, most innovative research projects that will help us to better understand, treat, and prevent MS. And that research will impact, of course, all people here living in Canada, but also beyond, and making sure that the impact has a global effect and vice versa.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. Next question. We often hear about the research breakthroughs, but less about the people behind them. How is MS Canada helping to train and attract the next generation of MS researchers to keep this momentum going?
Well, we've got great people.
Yeah,
To say
well,
that.
exactly.
Canada is home to some of the world's leading MS researchers and clinicians. And MS Canada has spent a lot of time and thought and energy around building that research capacity. Our former um, campaigns have largely been focused on making sure that we've got the know-how here in Canada. It's an incredibly important aspect of maintaining the enterprise here in Canada, but also the global research leadership that we have in MS. One of the things that comes to mind right away is that we do this in part through our NMS National Training Program. This is a talent pipeline that attracts, trains, and retains the next generation of researchers, but it does more than that. It exposes trainees in Canada to each other in an interdisciplinary way. I keep calling it the connective tissue of our MS research enterprise is very much fostered by this training program. And just this past year, two of the alumni that came through the program received super prestigious awards. Five of them, previously funded under this training program, secured tenure track academic positions in top universities here across Canada and in the US, including the University of Alberta, McGill, Colorado State University, and the University of British Columbia. And the investment of our donors is what has made that possible. So not only launching scientific careers, but strengthening sort of the web of collaboration across the MS research community that helps to drive those breakthroughs further faster, and compounds, I think, impact over the course of time.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you. I have another question. What is the next big opportunity for MS research?
Yeah, when I think about where I can see the science going and where the puck is going to be, there's two areas which I think, keep us very forward focused. And that's one is repairing the nervous system and restoring function, and the other is preventing MS. So that's actually what our next couple of Research Across Canada webinars are all about. So I really hope people on the call will sign up for those. We know that repairing injury to the nervous system and restoring lost function are within reach. Dr. Tremlett's work on the prodrome has a good example of research findings that open new doors to us in terms of earlier disease detection and or diagnosis. And this can lead to earlier treatment access that can make a world of difference for people not even yet diagnosed, not even yet, or just have been diagnosed. And to make this happen, we'll need to build on the early and sustained investments that are going to be required over the next 10, 15 years in prevention, repairing the nervous system, and restoring function, as I said. So we'll continue scaling the long-term work, the long-standing work that has been done in this country and beyond, engaging the MS research community and building on the momentum that we're already currently seeing. We have great evidence of that track record over the last 10, 15 years. I'm super excited when I think about where we get to go in the next 10 years.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I'm looking through some of the chat here as well. And so there's another one here that I've received that perhaps you can comment on. Is there work underway to enhance patient-centered research in MS? So is there work underway to enhance patient-centered research? So having MS patients at the research table, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I often credit our former vice president of research, Dr. Karen Lee, who's now leading, the Parkinson's organization in the country, for being ahead of her time and thinking about the engagement of lived experience in every single part of our research process, as I already alluded to. So everywhere, part of our DNA. There are models elsewhere in the country. The Canadian Institute of Health Research, probably about 10 years ago, started the SPORE initiative. So I'm going to try and get this right. Patient Strategy for Patient-Oriented Research. So we've certainly looked to the rest of what's being done in Canada. Lots of other charities who've engaged well. But we've also done some work through the International Progressive MS Alliance, working with an organization in the European Union called Multi-Act, and defining sort of principles of patient engagement and best practices. So we continue to evolve the way that we're thinking about it and look to get, quality improvement and to continue to engage people as best we can and improving along the way.
Yep. Fantastic.
Yeah. But there's
Thank
lots of work being done, I would say.
Yep. Right on.
Great question.
Yeah, okay. I'm just scanning one more time here. There was another request, Pam, if you could mention again the groups who are currently conducting research related to MS progression. And if not, we can certainly follow up with the.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of groups
Yeah,
looking at progression. What I will say is now 15 years ago, the International Alliance for Progressive MS was founded by then 5 or 6 organizations, research intensive MS societies from around the world. If we look at our portfolio of investment today, there's probably close to 60%, Ben, that are trying to better understand the mechanisms of progression in MS. And that wouldn't have been true 15 years ago. So the focus of aligning ourselves globally and trying to crack the nut on something that, we knew we didn't have any solutions for has resulted in the change in the way we look at MS today and increasingly number of therapies that are coming online for progression or progressive forms of the disease. So the next line of sight is to, and then how do you deploy that same working across the globe to really start thinking about getting upstream, I like to call it, and thinking about earlier, ultra early detection, risk understanding, and earlier diagnosis and treatment, which we know changes the course of the disease.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great question.
Yeah, you won't be surprised that there's another question here as it pertains to prevention research. And the question is, can you talk about MS Canada's role in supporting prevention research, in particular, perhaps as it relates to the Epstein-Barr virus or EBV?
Sure. This is on the radar. It's on the radar of everyone at a global level now, and MS Canada has played a hand in making sure that it has stayed at the top of the priority list.
Yeah.
When I think back, 8 years ago now, I guess, 7 years ago, at the beginning of our strategic framework, we put prevent MS as the fourth impact goal. Following that, the world came together on a Pathways to Cures document. So call it a framework of scientific endeavors, a roadmap that we all knew we needed to go after, and articulated slightly differently. End MS was one of the goals that was there. MS Canada and MS Australia have partnered in initiating the first ever global MS prevention initiative. We just met with some of the world's brightest people to talk about what that scientific strategy would be. I want to say 2 weeks ago. So that work is going to continue, and you'll start to see more and more happening. We are anticipating that as World MS Day happens here at the end of May, where the focus is early diagnosis, that we'll begin to start talking about this global initiative that MS Canada has been leading for the last, I want to say, year plus, with our friends in MS Australia, but other countries are going to be a part of that. So we're just in the process of launching, I would say.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Yeah, super
Thanks.
exciting.
Yeah, it's so exciting, really. And I'm gathering
Impossible.
I'm gathering from some of the messages that I'm seeing that there's also questions around like when's the next webinar, et cetera. So
Yeah.
I don't know if we have an exact date, but rest assured we will get that information out. So I think I'm going to wrap up. I want to
Sure.
thank you
We'll send
very
an
much.
email to follow up with two potential, dates.
Exactly. But thank you, Pam, for all your time
My pleasure.
and I'm sure and the part I missed, I'm sure was great.
JC stepped in admirably.
Yeah.
Admirably. I like that.
Over to you, JC. Thank you.
Thank you for being generous and gracious. Pam and Ben, and thank you for an educational and engaging. It felt like a conversation, which is lovely, a true discussion, and for bringing the progress and promise of MS research to life. The inspiration and excitement was palpable, so I thank you on behalf of all of us for that. And thank you to all of you for your thoughtful questions and active participation today. The chat was alive with questions that some of which have gone unanswered. So more to come with your Q&As in the future. We're so grateful to have you with us. I think it's a good sign when there was a question about when is the next webinar. We'll come back to you with that. And until then, a recording of this session will be made available on our YouTube channel in the next coming days. So please stay tuned for upcoming RAC events. And, I think what's really important is continuing the conversation, highlighting the progress that's being made and the opportunities ahead and the meaningful impact that your support is making possible. So to our donors and the MS community right across Canada from coast to coast to coast, thank you. Your time matters, and we're really glad that you spent it with us today. Your generosity is what drives our work. You are the fuel bringing us forward to a world free of MS. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.